The Loyola men's team, they are coming off a tough loss to Boston University up in Boston on Saturday by a score of 66 to 53. And that leaves them now with a 2-6 record in Patriot League play. And Jimmy, from what I've watched, I know that the win-loss record isn't good, and the team definitely wants it to be better. And they have some chances too coming up to improve that record. I feel like in most games, even when the Hounds lose, it's almost like they're kind of in the game for the majority of it. And then all of a sudden, there's just something that happens. It's almost like someone flicks a switch and the other team will go on a 10-0 run and then they'll just lose it and get out of control. It's almost like they just need to, I don't know, play two solid halves instead of playing one good half and one terrible half. Maybe it's just me. I just feel like they're close to kind of figuring it out, and they have the pieces. I like some of the pieces on this team, and they have a lot of veteran leadership. You look at Jalen Andrews and Kenny Jones, and even Golden DK. They've all been there for multiple years, and I don't know, it just hasn't clicked.
Well, here's why it hasn't clicked. We're not making the three ball. We don't make the three ball very much. Losing Cam is hurting us a lot. That's kind of the difference from last year to this year. We're seeing that we can't really shoot as well. I mean, look at what Cam has done at Rutgers, right? Like he's been really good for them. They
As a starter
as
too.
as a starter. Like we cannot speak enough about what we lost. Now let's focus on what we have. With what we do have, we got to shoot better on offense. Now the looks are just sometimes I feel like with our team especially, we get them and we just don't make them. And in that case, that's just bad luck sometimes. But we've shown games where we can put up points. It's just that, a lot of times I feel like we find ourselves kind of going cold at points. Like this was a problem last year. We kind of do it again this year. I just feel like we're always in these games at some point, and then it either gets away from us because the offense kind of falls apart, or we kind of get it to click. And I feel like when our offense gets good, then our defense doesn't click. Because if you look at a lot of the games, like there are games that when we score 70, the other teams are putting up 70. And that's a lot of points to give up. And obviously it's a lot of points to score too. So in some of those games, we're scoring up 70 points. We're not getting wins. It's just everything seems like to go wrong. It just hasn't really gone our way. And I'll say this, we do have veteran presence, but at this point, we need to just be worried about playing better night in and night out, because honestly, the conference tournament is what matters the most.
Right. I think gaining confidence coming into February is going to be key, because if you start to build some chemistry with whoever's out there, I mean, that's obviously a good thing. And getting Veljko Ilić back is big. He was out for the start of the season, but now he's back. I think that's a guy that they can try to incorporate into the offense and the defensive schemes. But
they got to win these next two games.
I was going to say, I was about to bring it up.
Next two games are might be the most winnable. I mean, listen, at Lafayette is going to be tough because any road game is just tough, especially in D1 basketball. And Lafayette is 6-15. We're 7-14. But then we play Bucknell here, who we've already beaten. We beat Bucknell on the road.
And they're the team that's below Loyola in standings for the Patriot League.
So that is games.
There's opportunity there.
Those are two games that we got to win. Then after that, of course, will be Colgate. That'll be tough.
It's a tough task. Colgate, that's a tall task.
But then, in February, we end with 4 home games in a row. So maybe we can kind of get it together.
Gain some steam.
Gain some steam by winning at home. I do feel like we play a lot better at home.
Oh, no doubt.
So I
feel like the role players play better at home.
One of the games is at Navy.
So it's like a 3 out of 4 at home kind of stretch.
It's a 3 out of 4 at home. But Navy obviously isn't the most far place. In fact, it's probably literally the closest place.
45 minutes to an hour drive.
Exactly. So it's not like it's that bad. It's just like when you were a kid, you used to drive to the games.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
The point is we need to see some improvement from the Hounds if we want to, get things a little bit better.
Right. And you bring up losing Cam Spencer. Obviously, that's a huge loss. He was the go-to guy offensively. And the year before that, it was Santi Aldama before he left for the NBA draft. I guess the difference is this year's team, I don't think there's a standout scorer. It's not like you're giving the ball to one guy and you're getting out of the way and you're gonna say, "Hey, go get me a bucket." I don't think that's the
That's
vibe with this team. And I'm looking here. I mean, Kenny Jones and Jalen Andrews are probably the two main scorers, and they both can score. We know that. I feel like other guys have stepped up more often than not. I mean, I love Chris Kuzemka. He's played well this year. He's shooting the ball really well. I think he's kind of finding himself a little bit and gaining confidence. And then you got Alonzo Faure, who can kind of stretch the floor a little bit. I mean, he can shoot it from the outside a little bit. Doesn't really take many threes, but he can be pretty dominant inside. And then I think Deion Perry, he's kind of finding himself a little bit. He can be a streaky scorer. So I feel like there's some guys that you can lean on night in and night out. I don't think all of them are going to be, I don't know, clicking at the same time. It's just hard because there's only one ball. But I mean, it's not like
it's also
you have to give it to one guy. I feel like you kind of have to rely on others and handle your own business.
Well, here's a huge problem with our offense that I kind of forgot to talk about. It's the turnovers. We just turn the ball over way too much. We just make too many just poor decisions, and it sets us back a lot. I mean, we really have a lot of turnovers, and it's just like if you look like, hey, I know you said Kenny Jones is like our leading scorer. Unfortunately, he also is averaging over three turnovers a game. So we had to find a kind of a balance. But also, I don't think it's on just one guy. Like obviously Kenny, yes, point guard, had a great season last year in terms of assists. Really, where it was I thought the place that he took a step forward and shooting the ball too. He can get very hot when in terms of shooting. Like he can make a few in a row. We also need Jalen, I think, to step up too. Like that is a guy that I think, rely on. When those two are playing at their best, I think we have a chance against absolutely anybody. But also, one thing that I think we'll all agree with is that the Patriot League is a tough conference.
It is every single year. You're going to get everyone's best shot night in and night out.
Yeah. So it shouldn't be seen as a bad thing. Oh, if we lose a game here or lose a game there, because we're not going to go undefeated in that. It's just about we need nightly improvement. And I think we can get that. I think we can get a lot better in the next month.
Yeah, and I would go off of what you said about Kenny Jones and Jalen Andrews. Listen, they're going to have the ball a lot in their hands just because they're guards. I mean, that's just natural.
Absolutely.
But even if they don't have the ball, I feel like you can just set screens and try to get them catch and shoot open looks. Because I feel like they're pretty good when they both are wide open and they're catching and shooting it rather than putting it on the court and shooting off the dribble. I feel like if you get them open looks, just simple catch and shoot, I feel like you can get them going. And then maybe they get the ball in their hands and they become more of drivers. I feel like they're by far the two guys that are going to be scoring the most night in and night out. But there are other guys, like we mentioned, who are more than capable of stepping up. So, like you said, there is some opportunity with the two games this week. You're 100% right, though. We do need to win both. It starts with the game, I believe you said the Lafayette game's on Wednesday. So, got to take care of business Wednesday.
And also, one more thing I forgot to mention. I feel like a broken record between the Broncos and Loyola basketball because I'm just always repeating the same things. Free throws. We got to make free throws. As a team, we're not very good at that. We have only, I think, 2 guys over 80%. So, and I think only 4 over 70. So,
I mean, it's also key to make them down the stretch.
Absolutely.
In addition to
turnovers and free throws,
just making the most of them.
If we can change that, I bet our record would be a lot better.
Yeah, and especially when you have meaningful games come March. I mean, you got to do the simple things well. I mean, I know it's so cliche, but keeping the ball from the other team, don't turn it over, get to the line, and then make them pay for fouling you. Make the free throws. It sounds so simple, and I know they can do it. We just have to see it more often, and I know they can do it. I have hope. But I wanted to bring up the women's team for a little bit because they actually started pretty well, the Loyola women's basketball team. They had a pretty good start to the season. I believe they were over 500 at one point. And correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were 4-3 or 5-4 or 6-5. I honestly forget which record it was, but they were over 500 at one point. And they have started conference play, and they, like the men's team, are 2-6 in Patriot League play. And on Saturday, I actually went to the game. They played Boston University here at home. And you know what? I thought they played pretty well for the majority of the game. It was almost like one of those weird games where you're scoring a lot of points during one stretch, but you can't stop them on the other end. And then when you go cold on offense, it's almost like they score every single time. It's almost like you have one thing going, but you can't have the other thing going at the same time. You kind of need both to click, but it never really clicked. But Jimmy, I'm not sure if you've caught a lot of the women's team's games this year, or at least been in the loop. But obviously, Lex Tarian and Talia Dixon, they're the two main scorers. But there's some other girls who can score too. I mean, scoring hasn't really been too much of an issue for them, especially recently. But I don't know. I feel like defensively they can clean it up. But I feel like for them, it's definitely a slower paced game. So you kind of have to move the ball around more. But I don't know. What do you see from the women's team? Maybe what do you like and what can they do moving forward?
Well, I'll start off by saying this. I think the coach has come in. This is her second year, I believe,
Yes,
right?
her name is Danielle O'Banian.
Yeah, well, I believe Coach has done a phenomenal job, honestly. Like, I think from where the program was to where it is now is a lot better. So I would start off by acknowledging that. And also rebuilds don't happen overnight. It takes a lot of time to build a program, especially because I believe in 2020 we did not have a conference win.
Yeah, I think you might be right about
Yeah.
that,
So
unfortunately.
that's a really rough place to build from. And now they're not just winning some games, but now they're competitive a lot more in the conference, and that's good to see. Obviously, Lex is only a sophomore, so she'll be here for not only just this season, but hopefully two more after, and then who knows, maybe even a fifth year here is potentially. It's always possible with the new COVID rules and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I think what we have to worry about is the same thing as the men's team. It's just constant improvement throughout the season. We want to see that because you just want to get to March and you want to be at a point where you're playing well because anything can happen in March. We know that. It doesn't matter if it's a game where you're clearly the underdog or if it's a game where you're supposed to win. We've seen like crazy happen, especially in college basketball. So I think
Oh, we have.
you just want to get to a point where you're playing well, where you're comfortable with your team, where you're playing good defense, you're not turning the ball over, you're making free throws, you're making smart decisions, um, and you have confidence as a team because a team with confidence is really a more dangerous team than a team with a good record. We see that all the time in college basketball.
No, for sure. And I think for them, it's like I said with the men's team, they just kind of keep playing and fighting and kind of finding their chemistry and finding themselves. And I don't know, maybe March they could surprise some people because I do think there are some good things with the women's team. I think obviously Lex Tarian is by far the number one option, and I feel like she's the go-to scorer on that team. But I feel like when she gets the ball in the post, I feel like that's the key. If you get her in deep post position, if she can, I don't know, draw a double team or something, I feel like that could free up shooters on the outside. And they have some shooters who are shooting over 30% from downtown, such as Ree Rozzi and Lee Dixon, just to name a few. I feel like that could free up other shots for the other women on the team. And I don't know, and maybe you can kind of just start spreading the ball around. It's not like, oh, every time we're gonna come down the court, oh, Lex is gonna get the ball. I don't know. You could switch it up, maybe go a little pick and roll. I feel like there's a lot of things to do. I feel like it helps when you have a dominant big
Mhm.
because everything kind of revolve around the big. And then if the big, I don't know, draws so much attention, you could free up other people. I think it's like the NBA with you look at Nikola Jokic, Joel Embiid. I mean, you look when they get the ball, they get doubled. You have three guys open on the other side of the court. I feel like that could be something similar to the women's team
Yeah, that's a good point. Great point.
for sure. But yeah, hopefully for both teams moving forward, they can find their way in Patriot play. They have some room to grow, but I think they can do it. And hopefully the next few games they can get some wins and gain some confidence.
Yeah, absolutely.